Oh man, F1 is back. Oh my goodness me, what a race. I'm absolutely just happy, man. I'm so happy to see it back. Like, I don't even know how to start this video. It's going to be a race review, but I'm just so happy. As a neutral, that's exactly the race that you want, and I'm so just ecstatic to see F1 back in the best possible way. And my goodness me, that race was crazy. It started off a bit slow and it was a bit average up until the lap 50, and then the last two safety cars just completely changed the race, and it just turned into like a 15 lap sprint. It was absolute madness, and I can't wait to break it down. But guys, the Austrian Grand Prix is done and dusted. It's in the books. Valtteri Bottas is the first winner of 2020. He pretty much controlled the race from start to finish, controlling issues with the car in terms of reliability, and he also got pole position as well, so pretty much a near perfect weekend. He almost got the Grand Slam, but unfortunately Lando Norris took away the fastest lap at the end. We'll get into that in a minute. And also worth noting, across the line on track it was Hamilton who got second, but he did have a 5-second time penalty. Therefore Charles Leclerc comes home in second for Ferrari. Very much 2012 vibes with Ferrari at the minute, where they don't have the car, and Leclerc has just pulled an absolute miracle out of nowhere. And Lando Norris, his first ever McLaren podium, and it's 2 podiums in 3 races for McLaren if you count and go back to Brazil 2019 now for McLaren. So it looks like they could be back, and it's been a tough winter for them and a thoroughly deserved podium. And Hamilton in the end, I believe, finishes P4 with the penalty, and Carlos Sainz in 5th. But let's break the race down a little bit, and let's give you guys a little bit of context to what was one of the craziest season openers I think we've ever seen. The drama began even before the race, because just about 30 minutes to an hour before the race started, Red Bull had lodged a second appeal against Hamilton, and it was for the yellow flags and speeding yesterday in qualifying. They found new evidence, new proof, and they presented it to the FIA, and the FIA actually agreed with it and therefore reversed their decision and gave Lewis a 3-place grid penalty for the race, and that meant Hamilton was starting from P5. That promoted Lando Norris up into 3rd, and it also put Bottas up front by himself with Max Verstappen alongside him on the front row. And it was going to be a really, really interesting one to see how Hamilton would cut his way through the field. You had Leclerc in P7, Sebastian Vettel P11 with a free tyre choice in the second Ferrari, and Ricciardo in 10th. It was a pretty good recipe for a fun race, both racing points in the top 10 as well. And it was only a matter of time before things started to kick off. So the race got underway. Bottas got away well. He held off Verstappen, and then Verstappen actually had to work really hard to hold off Norris for second place. And also Hamilton was pretty much hanging about P5. No real major changes on lap 1. And then eventually, as the race started to progress, Hamilton started to make his way forward. He got up to 3rd place, and it was Bottas, Verstappen and Hamilton in the top 3. And then eventually the first of the issues happened. Verstappen had an issue with the car. We're not exactly sure what it is just yet. It seems to have been some kind of electric issue, and this allowed Verstappen to, of course, retire from the Grand Prix, giving Hamilton 2nd place and making it a 1-2 for the Black Arrows. Along with this, you had Alex Albon in P4, who overtook Norris, who was P5, and you had Perez behind him and Leclerc, I believe, behind him. So the midfield battle was really, really close. McLaren, Racing Point, Ferrari, even Renault, they were all really closely matched, and it was anyone to take, to be honest. But generally speaking, Verstappen retired, and that presented a 1v1 fight between the 2 Mercedes cars. And then, of course, to make this even more exciting, the retirements started to happen. In this race, only 11 cars finished, but the one that caused the very first safety car was Kevin Magnussen. He was battling Esteban Ocon going up to turn 3, and he lost his brake, some kind of, I'm guessing, hydraulic issue, maybe lost his front right brake, I believe, and he spun up the hill, missed his braking point, and pretty much the car was stuck, so he couldn't move, and he was right in the line of fire, so right on the escape road, so therefore that caused the safety car. That safety car, of course, meant there was a pretty busy pit lane, lots of stacking, but pretty much everybody went onto the hard compound tyres, and it was looking like a run to the finish, about 40 laps on hard tyres all the way to the end, except for Sergio Perez, who fitted the medium compound tyres. He was the only one to do something different. The race then got back underway. There was various changes for position. Hamilton kept on pressuring Bottas, and the recurring theme, besides the retirements that were happening, was that the Mercedes cars were pushing each other so much, they were going over the curb curbs a lot, and that meant they were having issues with the gearbox and the hydraulics, and they were losing sensors. Therefore, they were risking retirement, because that's exactly what happened to Lance Stroll. He lost his sensors, and they had to, retire the car because of that. So the curbs were proving to be a real big challenge this weekend for all the cars, and Mercedes started to feel the pressure as that inter-team battle continued, and the pressure was building. Hamilton behind Bottas the entire time, but Bottas kept his cool and stayed in front of the six-time world champion. And then a bunch more retirements happened, and eventually we then got the key moment as George Russell, who was doing so well in this race, he was running in P12 ahead of Sebastian Vettel, who spun and had contact with Carlos Sainz. He was running so well, but then unfortunately it triggered a second safety car with about 20 laps to go. He pulled over with what I believe was some kind of issue with the engine, and I think it might have been oil pressure or fuel pressure, I'm not quite sure. Either way, it caused a second safety car, and the way Mercedes were placed on the track, they were so far ahead, they missed the pit entry because the safety car was triggered at the wrong time for them, and it did mean that everyone from third place down had the option to pit. Perez didn't take this, but Albon did. So Alex Albon pit for the soft tyres. Leclerc, Sainz, Norris, Vettel, anyone that had a pit, pretty much everybody. And the Mercedes were out front by themselves on used hard tyres. Everyone behind them had fresh mediums or fresh softs. And also Perez stayed out as well. He stayed out on his used mediums that he pit for in the first round of pit stops. So yeah, we got back underway after the safety car period, and we got half a lap, and then we had another safety car because Raikkonen, his front right tyre came off of the wheel. Very strange issue. I've never seen that before. It looked like a fault with the Pirelli tyre because the wheel was on the car, so it wasn't an issue with Alfa Romeo. They had the wheel on the car properly. The actual tyre came off of the carcass, so something really strange there, and that triggered another safety car, so we had to wait a little bit longer. In the process though, there was a key moment where Albon actually challenged and overtook Perez in that half a lap, and he got third place, which would put him behind the Mercedes, but on soft tyres he would be a massive threat. And that's exactly what happened. So when the final safety car came in, everyone had their soft tyres or their medium tyres all fresh or relatively, not very used. And you had both of the Mercedes nursing issues out front on used hard tyres. So on the restart, Albon was the first to strike. On the soft compound tyres, he tried to chase down Hamilton and made a brilliant move around the outside of turn 4. But unfortunately for Alex Albon, and it really hurts to say because it happened in Brazil, both him and Lewis had contact again, the stewards deeming Hamilton to be guilty for that one, and he got given a 5-second time penalty, and it meant that Albon spun off into the gravel and dropped to the back of the field. Personally, I think it was the right decision that Hamilton got a penalty. I think he should have got 10 seconds rather than 5, and the reason I say this, before people jump down my throat, when Hamilton took Albon out because of the incident, Hamilton went out of road. He should have just backed off and let Albon have the position. But basically, 5 seconds wasn't enough because when you penalise somebody, Hamilton should have been relegated to wherever Albon was. And Albon was another few more seconds down the road, in last place. So for me, I should have pushed Hamilton down a lot further. I think 5 was quite lucky for him. So I think at the end, he won't be too upset with that one, to be fair. But generally speaking, after the incident happened, Albon dropped to the back, and that promoted Sergio Perez to 3rd, Lando Norris to P4, and also Charles Leclerc to P5. So what happened was a few laps later, Perez and Lando started to battle away, and Perez managed to hold on. In the process, Leclerc saw an opportunity, and he got past Lando Norris and got himself up into 4th place. And suddenly, Ferrari was sniffing a podium. We then get the verdict come through that Lewis got a 5-second time penalty, and as that happened, Leclerc made a move on Perez for 3rd place, which would have been a net 2nd. And then a few laps after, Norris made a move on Perez for 3rd. Really crazy sequence, it was all kicking off left, right and centre. The move on Norris and between Perez was a bit of a dirty one from Perez. Norris was right there. He completely squeezed him onto that really sharp inside curb. And to be fair, I think if Lando got damaged, that would have been a penalty for Perez. And I think it still should be, to be fair. But either way, Lando managed to push on. And in the last 2 laps, Lando was about 7.5 off of Hamilton. So he had to close that gap by about 2.5 seconds. And he put in 2 back-to-back fastest laps. And he managed to get it in the end by 0.2 of a second and get a podium. Sainz also got past Perez as well, who was struggling on his medium tyres. And of course, then further down, we had good races, I believe, for, I mean, to be fair, a good race of Giovinazzi. He was the one that stood out to me. He got, I believe, 8th place with Perez's penalty, possibly 9th, not quite sure where he finished, but a really good race of Giovinazzi. Alfa Romeo, who struggled all weekend, like all the Ferrari-powered cars this weekend, he managed to get some good points for them after Kimi retired. Sebastian Vettel scored points as well after the spin, having contact with Carlos Sainz, which was a racing incident really. Maybe more blame on Sebastian Vettel's side because he went for a gap that was closing, and he kind of got it a bit wrong. So yeah, Sebastian really recovering well to get a couple points or a point here today. And also Kvyat, I believe his left rear popped at the end. It was all a madness. Like, it's all a blur. So much happened. Only 11 cars finished, and unfortunately, Nicholas Latifi, the rookie on his debut, P11, he missed out on the points by 1 place. I'm sure Williams would have been praying for, a retirement somewhere, one more, just so that they could have got the final point. But in the end, it's P11 for Nicholas Latifi. I think Russell could have scored points today. He had really good pace and he was in the mix with the Williams car. So it's a real shame for them. But generally speaking, my goodness me, what a crazy race. And just to confirm, just going to give you guys a rundown of the final results. Valtteri Bottas picks up the win here today ahead of Leclerc and Lando Norris. That is your podium. Really good to see. Hamilton P4 in the end. Sainz P5 ahead of Sergio Perez, who did have a 5-second time penalty, but had enough of a gap to finish ahead of Pierre Gasly, who gets 7th in the AlphaTauri. Very quiet race for Pierre, but quietly in the points. Ocon, on his return to Formula 1 after a year out, finishes in 8th place for Renault, scoring some points ahead of Giovinazzi and Sebastian Vettel, rounding off the top 10. And Nicholas Latifi, unfortunately, just missing out on the points in P11. And your retirements are Kvyat, Albon, Raikkonen, Russell, Grosjean, Magnussen, Stroll, Ricciardo, and Verstappen. And that is your lot for round 1 of 2020, the Austrian Grand Prix. Next weekend, same track, but it's the Styrian Grand Prix. And hopefully we have another one of these races. The curbs will be exactly the same, so there'll be a factor once again in terms of the reliability of the cars, and I can't wait to see how it all shakes out. But guys, that is my review of the race. A crazy one. I might have missed out a few details, but I'm doing it in heat at the moment because I'm so excited and I'm just so gassed that that race happened. It's just such a great feeling to have F1 back again, and we've really missed it. But guys, if you enjoyed the video, drop a like, subscribe if you're new. I'm trying to hit 40,000 subs, guys, so I'd greatly appreciate any support. There'll be more reviews every single race this season. And finally, check out the 2 videos on your screen if you have missed them. But that is it from me here today, and I'll see you all next weekend for the Styrian Grand Prix race review. But until then, let's goodbye from me.